Hi, and welcome to AltoonaMirror.com. I'm Neil Rudel, joined by Cory Geiger, and we're here for a little bit of a house ad on our book called They Know Joe. It's in the formation process at this point. We're expecting to have it out for the football season. Cory, just some thoughts from you as far as what this experience at this point has been like.
There are a lot of books out there about Joe Paterno and Penn State history. For us to come on here and tell you that this is the greatest book ever written might be a little much, but I will say this. It's different than probably anything you've ever read about Joe. We've got a collection of some three dozen big names from around the country. Dan Rooney, Steelers owner, John Schaefer, John Clayton from ESPN, a lot of coaches, a lot of former players, Kerry Collins, Bobby Bowden wrote the foreword. All of them are sharing some of their favorite memories and personal stories about Joe, all in one collection. It's a good read.
Yeah, and the old guard, Fran Fisher, Jim Tarman, Beano Cook, people that go back. I think you'll find at the end of the day when you read this book, you have people from the 50s up to the current old rivals. Dick McPherson, you talked to.
Dick McPherson is like a comedian, but we've got people like Milt Plum. Rip Ingles' son Chip talks about how Joe got the job. So this is a collection. You've probably heard a lot of these stories if you know and have followed Penn State football for a long time. We're journalists. We're not salesmen. This isn't something we do a lot. But I can say in reading a lot of these things and hearing the stories that all of these people have, they all have their own little personal details that, maybe have not all kind of come to light in one publication.
Yeah, and the other thing that kind of struck me was how willing people are to be involved with something like this because of the admiration they have for Joe.
Sure, we've called a lot of coaches, a lot of big names around the country, and they call back. Bobby Bowden, hey, Coach, would you like to speak about Joe Paterno? Sure, no problem. John Clayton from ESPN. Dan Rooney, I called Ireland to talk with Dan Rooney one morning. He's the ambassador of Ireland, to talk about how he offered Joe the job in 1969 to coach the Steelers. Sure, I'd be more than happy to talk about that. Everybody likes to talk about Joe.
Yeah, Chris Fowler, who was here for the Blair County Sports Hall of Fame, we got his thoughts on Joe. Matt Millen, a great storyteller, and a lot of the Altoona guys, the Blair County people that helped lay the foundation at Penn State. Brad Benson, Mike Irwin, John Ebersole. So I think you'll find an interesting cross section of fun stories.
It's interesting, and we've got the relatively recent Penn State players like Michael Robinson. Obviously, we have the Adam Talaferro story with him telling the story about Joe visiting him in the hospital. Maybe when we close this, tell me, of all the guys you've talked to, what's the favorite story that you've heard from anyone?
Well, Matt Millen told me his recruiting story of when Joe thought something was going on improper. Millen was going to go to Colorado, and I think back then it was a different time in terms of luring people to come. And Joe and a Michigan recruiter literally squared off in Millen's living room, which I had not heard that over the past 30-some years. So I think that you'll find a lot of different sides of Joe: the competitor, the compassionate Joe, the humorous Joe. I think you'll find, because I know I did.
My favorite story that I encountered was former Syracuse coach Dick McPherson. He was on the Maryland coaching staff for Joe's first game as a head coach in 1966. Lou Saban was Maryland's head coach, and Penn State did a pooch kick on third down in the second half of that game. Lou Saban turns to Dick McPherson and says, "What the hell is he doing?" And McPherson says, "Well, I think he's playing good field position." And Lou Saban says, "I don't know what the hell he's doing, but if he keeps doing that kind of stuff, he won't be around very much longer." So this is his first game, and 44 years later, the guy's still coaching.
And the kicker on that story was Saban. Penn State won 15-7. Mike Reed had 3 safeties in the game, and Joe's first win, I believe it was at Maryland. And Joe's looking around for Saban afterwards to shake hands with him, and Saban wasn't around. Saban left. And Saban called him like on Sunday or Monday, and said, "Hey, I want to apologize for not shaking hands with you, but we were both so terrible, I couldn't face you," or something like that, and they both had a laugh.
That's great. I mean, those are the kind of stories you'll have in the book. Again, it's called They Know Joe. If you check the Mirror website, you can find ordering information. It's paterno.altoonamira.com. The book will be available throughout the fall, throughout going into the Christmas season. Neil and I will be making a lot of public appearances, signing signing some of the books, answering questions about dealing with Joe. Neil's the longest tenured Penn State beat writer, on the beat. You've been around Joe longer than anyone on this beat. So, how much fun has it been compiling these stories for you?
Oh, a lot of fun. A lot of the stories I had heard bits and pieces of, but it's been able to reconnect with some longtime friends.
Yeah, it should be a lot of fun. Again, paterno.altoonamir.com.